Welcome to your ultimate pit stop, Piston Pundit. In early 2025, US-Canada trade tensions roared into high gear, shaking two industries at the heart of North America, dairy and automobiles. Tariffs are surging, Canada is fortifying its supply management shield, and Washington is pressing harder than ever. From family farms to Detroit's assembly lines, the impact is already visible, threatening both stability and jobs. In this video, we'll unpack Canada's defensive maneuvers, the US counterpunch, and the ripple effects across steel and autos. Stay tuned. Here are the key developments you need to know. Trade war on the starting line. Tariffs and dairy in the crosshairs. In August 2025, President Donald Trump revved up his trade fight with Canada, hiking tariffs on non-USMCA goods from 25% to 35%. Officially tied to fentanyl trafficking, the move was also a clear shot at Canada's fiercely defended dairy system. For decades, supply management has limited U.S. dairy access to just 3.5% of the Canadian market. Push past that cap, and tariffs skyrocket, 241% on milk, nearly 300% on butter. To U.S. farmers, who already sell about $800 million in dairy north each year, it feels like a padlocked gate. To Canada, it's survival, an economic pillar protecting thousands of family farms. Trump's ultimatum: open the market wider or face tariffs spilling into other sectors. Ottawa pushed back, noting it accounts for only 1% of U.S. fentanyl imports and has aggressively policed the border. By August 1st, tariffs were hammering lumber, steel, aluminum, and auto parts. What began as a dairy dispute had become a battle over economic sovereignty, one with ripple effects across North America. But Canada wasn't about to stand idle. It answered with a legislative shield designed to lock down its farm sector. Canada's Countermove, Bill C-202 and the Dairy Fortress. In June 2025, Ottawa fortified its defenses with Bill C-202, barring supply-managed industries, dairy, eggs, and poultry, from being used as bargaining chips in trade talks. The timing was deliberate. Canada knew Trump's pressure was mounting, and this law effectively welded the gate shut. For farmers, especially in Quebec and Ontario, it was more than legislation. It was reassurance. Supply management stabilizes prices and quotas, shielding small and mid-sized farms from being bulldozed by U.S. agribusiness. In rural communities, the system underpins loans, equipment purchases, and local jobs. Without it, Carney warned, towns could become ghosted landscapes of bankrupt farms. Not everyone was convinced. Critics argued that by hard-coding protectionism, Canada reduced its flexibility and risked harsher retaliation from Washington. Exporters outside the system, like beef and grain producers, feared they might pay the price. Still, Canada's message was unmistakable. It would endure economic pain in steel, autos, and lumber if necessary. But dairy was off-limits. Whether this stance strengthens Ottawa's hand or paints it into a corner remains uncertain. And while Canada dug in its heels on dairy, the bigger storm was already hitting Detroit. Before we delve deeper, do us a favor and smash that like and subscribe button. It helps us reach more viewers and keeps you up to speed with the latest industry and policy updates. Ripples in Detroit, steel, supply chains, and auto fallout. If dairy is symbolic, steel and autos are survival, and Trump's 50% tariffs on Canadian metals since June 2025 hit Detroit like a sledgehammer. General Motors reported a $1 billion profit drop in Q2, while Stellantis suffered $2.7 billion in first-half losses. Analysts warn Ford faces similar pain. The timing couldn't be worse. Automakers are already pouring billions into EVs, autonomous tech, and global platform shifts. The Ford F-Series, America's best-selling truck, relies heavily on Quebec aluminum. With tariffs inflating supply costs, industry-wide expenses could climb by $108 billion this year. Consumers may pay the price too, with vehicles rising by as much as $9,000. The structural issue is clear. Even made-in-America cars depend on imported subcomponents. Tariffs now tax parts twice, eroding margins, discouraging investment, and slowing output. Beyond corporations, Detroit's plants sustain hundreds of thousands of jobs. Layoffs ripple into small businesses across Michigan. Critics argue tariffs meant to buy American are instead crippling the very communities they aim to protect. But while automakers buckle under pressure, Canada adjusted its strategy, easing off in some areas to keep trade alive. Diplomacy in motion, rollbacks, leverage, and the USMCA card. By late August, Canada shifted gears toward pragmatism. Prime Minister Mark Carney announced the rollback of many retaliatory tariffs, covering goods like orange juice, apparel, and appliances, to align with exemptions the U.S. had already granted under the USMCA. The move restored tariff-free trade on over 85% of cross-border commerce, giving relief to consumers and manufacturers. Not everyone applauded. Unifor, Canada's largest private sector union, blasted the rollback as capitulation, while opposition leader Pierre Poilievre argued Ottawa gave ground without extracting concessions. Critics feared it invited further U.S. pressure. Carney countered that harmonizing exemptions preserved access for key industries while keeping trade flowing ahead of the 2026 USMCA review. His pitch, partial stability, was better than risking a collapse. The strategy highlights the USMCA's dual role as both shield and bargaining chip. With 3/4 of exports tied to U.S. demand and Washington still reliant on Canadian energy, minerals, and manufacturing, Ottawa is playing for time. The rollback wasn't surrender, but a tactical pit stop, betting U.S. pressure will backfire hardest in Detroit. But Canada's moves weren't only reactive. It unveiled a longer-term strategy to balance defense, diversification, and diplomacy. Canada's playbook: protect, pivot, and cool the engine. Canada's response isn't just reactive, it's a three-lane strategy: defend its core, diversify exports, and de-escalate where possible. On defense, Bill C-202 locked supply management into law, shielding dairy, eggs, and poultry. Ottawa has added subsidies to help farmers ride out volatility and pledged support for steel and auto suppliers adapting to domestic buyers. On diversification, Canada is steering exports toward Europe and Asia. Through the EU's CETA Pact and the Pacific CPTPP deal, Ottawa is widening markets, reducing its dependency on one customer, a weakness Trump's tariffs exposed. On de-escalation, Carney's selective rollback of retaliatory tariffs boosted confidence and positioned Canada as the adult in the room, keeping credibility with allies while leaving dialogue open with Washington. Risks remain, particularly the 2026 USMCA review, where Trump could again tie trade disputes to unrelated issues like security or narcotics. Yet optimism persists. Farmland values and quota prices are climbing, signaling resilience. All of this leads us to the final verdict. Has Canada bought breathing room, or is the U.S. playing a riskier hand? Verdict: resilience versus risk. Who wins this round? Canada's response to the 2025 trade standoff has been calculated and steady. With Bill C-202, it reinforced supply management, locking dairy, poultry, and eggs beyond Washington's reach. At the same time, Prime Minister Carney's selective rollback of retaliatory tariffs restored tariff-free trade on most goods, aligning with USMCA rules. That dual approach, defend the essentials, ease pressure where possible, has preserved stability and bought Ottawa time ahead of the 2026 review. South of the border, however, the story looks very different. Tariffs on autos and metals are already straining supply chains, inflating costs, and squeezing Detroit's automakers. Instead of fueling American industry, critics warn these measures may only saddle consumers with higher prices and weaken the very communities Trump vowed to protect. Canada's mix of legal safeguards, economic pragmatism, and diplomatic restraint shows how smaller economies can survive a heavyweight trade fight. Now, what do you think? Did Canada's refusal to bend on dairy strengthen its hand or limit future flexibility? Are U.S. tariffs truly leverage or a costly self-inflicted wound? How do you see the 2026 USMCA review unfolding? Compromise or confrontation? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We love to see how the community weighs in on this cross-border standoff. Before you go, make sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss the latest updates on trade, policy, and industry shifts right here on Piston Pundit. Thanks for watching, and until next time, keep your engines running and your insights sharp. You can now check out any of the videos on the screen. There's plenty more to explore.